Welcome to the Page One Podcast, a twice-weekly podcast featuring a variety of guests and thought leaders on topics ranging from channel strategies to tariffs, influencer marketing, best-in-class product launches, and all the details about how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers, or what we call R-commerce. Now, here's your host, Luke Peters.
Thanks for joining us on the Page One Podcast. This is the podcast that deals with consumer products in relation to product launches and selling into big box online platforms. I am your host, Luke Peters, and I have 17 years of experience in this category. And today I'm excited to have Mike Watts joining us from LoveHandle.com. And a little bit about Mike. Mike is the founder of 6 companies totaling over $150 million in sales, and now teaches entrepreneurs to reach their financial and personal and spiritual goals. Currently serving as CEO, Texas-based manufacturer, 100% American-made, patented, printed smartphone accessories. And we'll get into exactly what that's all about. Mike's products have been featured in Good Morning America, QVC, HSN, and the Today Show, and they are all sold on Walmart, CVS, Home Depot, Lowe's, Rite Aid, Office Depot, and more. Thanks for joining us, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Luke.
Okay, great. And Mike, I want to get into actually talk a lot about your sales channels. But before we do that, just a couple quick questions. Why don't you tell us quickly, what does LoveHandle do? Just a little bit more about the product so the audience can understand what you have created here.
Great. Yeah. So the LoveHandle is a low profile, comfortable, pocket friendly smartphone grip that was patented and developed here in the States. And we partnered actually with the inventor, which has kind of been my game, is to license patents for products that I think are going to be consumer facing and solve a real problem for the large number of people. We manufacture our super thin smartphone grip right here in suburban Houston, Texas, and built all the automation equipment to be able to make up to 50,000 units a day, completely custom printed. So we have some of our business in the promotional product space, a lot of it online, and then we're just now breaking in a big way into retail.
That's really interesting, that one part you mentioned about how you partner with the inventors. So I'll get into that a little bit later, because before we dive deeper into the business, you started, it looks like 6 companies here, reading your bio, which is really amazing. And you're speaking, you've worked with Damon John from Shark Tank, and your products are featured all over the place. So obviously you've done well for yourself. Want to talk about your childhood, and was there like a specific inspiration or somebody or something that kind of nudged you down this road and got you so interested in entrepreneurship?
Well, Luke, I think I've always had kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, or maybe a bloodline, as it were. My parents actually started the first company that was sort of right in front of my face. Growing up as a kid, I always just liked having extra money, and my parents didn't really have the resources to just hand it to me. So early on, I was selling, blow pops, and now and later's in the middle school lunchroom. I was cutting the neighbor's yard, and eventually built a little business around cutting quite a few lawns in the summertime. Then, as I got older, in high school, I started creating, only seniors got to leave campus for off-campus lunch, which was, as a junior, I was pretty jealous about. But I figured out all it was a little yellow piece of identification that I needed. So I built a business around that for a short while until I got caught, and
those are learned my lesson fun.
About it. Just because it's entrepreneurial doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. So, each step along the way, I've always been just willing to take risks and willing to put myself out there and learn as I go. And I think that's really the common factor for success, is just being willing to shoot forward without knowing the exact outcome, but be willing to learn as mistakes come and failures come along the way, and course correct, and then keep pushing.
And did you grow up in the Houston area?
I did. I'm actually a 7th generation Texan. And so I actually have family that was fought in the Alamo back in the day.
That's amazing.
Tell people we were in Texas when it was still Mexico. So
yeah, wow.
We go way back.
Wow, that's cool. I visited the Alamo actually, so that's pretty cool. And kind of getting into your entrepreneurial career, you graduated from Texas A&M and with an agribusiness degree, but then you went and worked for corporate for 8 years. So which is interesting because I actually, after school, went and worked as a hazardous waste scientist for the government for a couple of years, not quite 8. But so you kind of, you're entrepreneurial when you're young, you got your degree, you went and worked, and then somehow you decided to jump back into business. How did that happen?
Well, I think it's probably like a lot of people that have been able to make that leap. And again, I'm not saying anything specifically against having a corporate traditional career, but for me, the frustration out of school, I was doing what I was supposed to do, right? Go to school, get a good job, get the security. I mean, I was working for the electric company, and there's nothing more secure really than that. It's a monopoly, and people just don't get fired from there. It's very much like working for the government. And my grandmother was super happy. She said, you've got the best job ever. You can never be fired, and you get security for your family. But the problem is that every year would come along, and I can't not give 110%. I'm just wired that way. And I would give 110% and expect to be compensated relative to the people around me. And that just didn't happen that way. I would get my 3% cost of living adjustment because that was just what was standard. And it was just like this normalization of everyone back to the mean or even below the mean that really frustrated me. And then when in the year 2000, my first son was born, and he's actually back at Texas A&M now, so it's all come full circle. But my wife bought me a copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad and gave it to me. She had seen it on Oprah, gave it to me. And by us reading that book together and understanding sort of the principles and learning more about how money works, we said, you know what, let's find a way to get an alternate stream of income somehow, and so that we can meet our personal family goal of being able to have her stay home and invest her time and effort during the days into our growing family. And then I would just find a way to make some money. So that sort of started us on our journey. I started doing home and garden shows on the side. That's one of the very first of those 6 businesses was this product called Rain Sorb that we sold at craft fairs. I'd buy it wholesale and package it up, and created my first brand and grew it. And there's still a product out there today sold at Home Depot and Lowe's that is what was my competitor at the time. And then from there, we just kept adding more products and started more little kind of small companies based upon new product lines, yard decorations, and wooden airplanes out of Vietnam that we sold in the malls at Christmas time and kiosks. And so we just kept trying new things. But then that eventually led me to believe that I needed a product I could protect, because all of the products I was selling were commodities. And every time I would show up and do good at a show or at an event or at a mall, the next week somebody else would show up selling the exact same product because they just went to my source. And so that's where I learned that I needed to be able to control my market. So that's when I started working in patented products, or patent pending products at least. Yep.
And I definitely want to dive into that. And actually just had a patent attorney on my podcast, Tina Loza. She's our,
really?
She's our IP attorney, and has grown one of the largest female, women-owned and minority-owned IP firms in the country. So it's pretty cool, because we were just talking about how brands should be protecting their business and how IP is that important asset. And we'll dive into that. And before we do, let's talk. And by the way, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that's a cool reference that you kind of pointed out, that you read that book. And that was, one of the things that got you on this journey. I've read a bunch of his books, and they have a kids version. I got that for my kids too. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you knew that, but he has a board game. We play the cash flow board game. It's my kids' favorite game to figure out how they can, get out of the rat race and get out there into the fast track and get ahead. Yeah, that's awesome. So diving into, let's get, for the audience, a little bit of scale of the company. I think you have some of this. So your company right now with LoveHandle, you have 30 full-time staff?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're just over 30, and actually right outside of the door of the studio right now, I can, hopefully you can't hear them, but I can vaguely hear them packaging up a large order we have going out for Academy Sports and Outdoors. That's adding the product line for the Christmas season. And right up behind that, we were packing up for Albertsons. And so it's neat because we've invested over the last few years into being able to manufacture every piece from A to Z in one building. So when they order, for example, Academy orders, and they wanted some cool foam grip designs that were specialized for Texas consumers, for their Texas stores. So we made some that said, "This ain't my first rodeo," and "Made in Texas," and "Texas Proud." And we were able to make that and then also package it in-house, and then put it into clip strips, and then send it to the store with clip strips program where they can place it in there real easily. And it just makes it really easy for the buyer to pick it up because it's personal for them. It's relevant for their consumer. And so we can take that same model and apply it across all different types of retailers and price points.
Wow. And what is the kind of the channel, if you could give me whatever you're comfortable talking about, but kind of the breakdown in channel sales. So it looks like you're doing some direct to consumer commercials, it looks like, and also some direct to consumer marketing. So are you able to talk to maybe the percentage of sales that are in store, the percentage of sales that are, say, Amazon, and then the percentage of sales that are just everything else on the web, maybe your own website? How does that look?
Yeah, so I can, I'm pretty much an open book. So right now, actually, and to date, one of our niches that we've been very, very strong in is in promotional products. And so we've, right now, I would say that around 50 to 55% of our business is strictly promotional, where we're putting brand names from companies, big and small, onto the product. And we even developed a way to be able to customize the packaging. So we actually print custom marketing literature here and then attach our phone grips to it. So marketers love that because they can put all their marketing material on the card, their extended messaging, links to their website, QR codes, and then it's got a cool gift that will then be seen hundreds, if not thousands of times a day through its, or total through its lifetime on the back of a smartphone. So it's from a marketing perspective, it was fantastic. And that's not what I thought the product would be. When I licensed it, I really didn't give much credence to the promotional products industry at all, but it's much bigger than I ever thought it was. And you look at a pen, it's like 50 cents for a pen or whatever. You're like, oh, there's not much money in it. But when they buy 10,000 or 50,000 at a time, well, that is a lot of money. So it's been a really strong part of our business, and we've dedicated a lot of our effort into that space. And one of the good things about the promotional space is there's really only two sort of closed net search engines out there. So when it comes down to protecting your product and your brand, particularly with a patent or a brand name, having two closed loop systems makes it much more attainable. So we've been able to grow that business well. And then the rest of the half of the business, 40 to 45% of the business is to the consumer, and that is either through brick and mortar retail, which is really right now only about 10 to 15%, but growing quickly. And then, Amazon, the .com space is huge for us. We spend a lot of time and effort doing a good job on Amazon, being, a great seller on there, optimizing our ads, making sure our listings look good, and then making sure that we have great customer service so that our ratings are higher than our competitor. We've got one big competitor that set, historic records over the last few years. They were number 2 on the Fortune 5000. And started the same month that we did in their inception. So I'm a pretty competitive guy. So it's been hard for me sometimes to just be second place for so long and wanting to win in the category. But at least in the Amazon space, we are winning there. And I think at retail, we're due to win pretty quickly.
Awesome. So thanks for that breakdown. So just to reiterate, so it's about 50% or so promotional, and then about 10 to 15 in store. So the bulk of that, or the rest, about 35% or so, is going to be the .com and Amazon. .com and Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We have LoveHandle.com and then Amazon. And I'd say from that breakdown, or probably 10% is our own website, and then the balance would be Amazon.
And back to promotional, because that is surprising, and I think the audience would find it really interesting too. And I totally agree. It's a great product. I'll probably end up being a customer of yours for one of the trade shows, because I can see this is like an ideal thing that, that tons of people could use on their phones. How do you, actually get into the promotional side? It sounds like you said there's just two search engines or websites that you literally have to list your product in, and then you're working with them, or how does the promotional business work in a nutshell?
That's a great question. And this is good knowledge for people to have. I had to learn it all going in. In fact, when I started, they have this coding in their industry that sort of masks the actual pricing, because everybody in there is kind of a middleman, right? So that the guy selling to the brand, let's say Coca-Cola, he's a distributor, but he sells them everything, and flyers and shirts and caps and phone grips. And he'll make, anywhere between 25 to 40% margin on everything he sells then. Well, he wants to be able to list the pricing out there. So there's codes based on whether it's a 40% item or a 50% item or a 10% item, and how much margin he's going to make. And so I didn't even know what those codes were the first show I went to. But there's two industries. There's ASI, which is Advertising Specialties Institute, and you can Google it and find them. And they're a great organization out of New Jersey, and they produce shows coast to coast. I think there's a total of 5 shows a year that they do, and these are closed shows that only their official distributors come to. They have the search engine that they call ESP, and I'm not even sure what that stands for, but it's a search engine for promotional products. And it's closed. Like, I can't even search as a supplier. I can't search as a distributor would, right, against my competitors. I can only see my own listing on there. But it has all the coded pricing, all the sales literature, and everything that they'll need to then turn around and market it to the brand as a potential product for them. And then the other industry organization is PPAI, and they use a search engine called Sage, S-A-G-E. And Sage is based out of Dallas, Texas, and they have a great search engine too. And it's just kind of like a Google, Yahoo thing, one or the other. And a lot of people, will use both. But there's membership fees associated with both. Not as much for the distributor. There is some for them, but for the supplier, and it's based on your revenue. So starting out, I think with like a startup, it's around $500 a month that it costs you to be an official supplier and to have a listing in there. But, you really, if you want to do it, you can't just, there's, I think, 1.4 million products in there. So you can't just show up and put your product in there and expect it's going to be found. You either have to be at shows, promoting it and getting people to look for it and build your brand, or you need to be doing some sort of marketing and advertising to show up in the searches, product features, like anything else, there's paper placement across the board there. And so those two search engines are really where most of the business happens. There's another one called Distributor Central out there, but the Sage and ESP are the two kind of Yahoo and Google of the promotional products industry.
Wow. Thanks for that breakdown. I'll definitely going to dive into our products. We're selling compact appliances and generally wouldn't fit into this category, but there is related accessories that would. And it's, I just find it really interesting that 50% of your business comes from this industry. I get it. Your product is perfect for this category. But even you said you weren't even sure that's kind of where things were going to go, but that's something that you're doing right now and succeeding at it. So it's super interesting.
Yeah, for us, it was understanding, and this is true for no matter how you're going to go to market, and is to understand your consumer. And then in this case, the consumer is a marketer. And if you put your marketing hat on, you say, I'm going to go to this trade show, and how am I going to get people's attention? Well, people are like, I'm going to give them something with my logo. I'm going to give someone a gift at their essence. But then I also have my brochure sitting here beside it. And so by us, nobody picks up the brochure. They just take the squeezy ball or the koozie or whatever. So we said, why not, be a super relevant product that we can, price affordably. And again, the margins in that space are much tighter than they are at retail, but the volumes are higher. But let's make it even better. And let's put it on a custom card so that they get that brochure attached to the product. And then let's do it, and like everybody else in the industry, they charge for color. We don't charge for color. Everyone else in the industry charges rush fees. We don't charge those. We produce it in 3 days and up to 50,000 units. Like, no one else can do that because most of these guys are just sourcing this stuff in China. So by us investing in our capacity to produce high quality product really, really fast, and then have that extra layer of that extended marketing on the card, it really positioned us as sort of, it's like if you've ever read The Blue Ocean Strategy.
Yeah, great book.
It's a perfect example. Yeah, it's a perfect example of that. We don't really have any competition per se because we have such a unique proposition for these marketers that they can't help. Our reorder rate's over 70%. And people just keep, and that's ultimately the best indicator any business can have is your reorder rate. So we're very pleased with the results there. And we're now number 8 out of the 1.4 million products I mentioned. We're the number 8 search for product in the whole search engine.
Wow. That's got to be a good place to be. So congrats. That's awesome. So you've started a lot of companies and you've, obviously grown them and it looks like 6 total. And then I think 3 multi-million and over 50 million in sales. Mm-hmm. And what if a question here? So you have about 30 staff right now. I'm listening to your sales process and I'm going to ask some questions about how you set up your sales team because you guys are really diverse on who you're selling into and all of the accounts you have. But what was maybe the major learning you had going from, say, a smaller company, say under 10 employees to to now 30. Curious, like, was there a key hires you had to make that you have now that you couldn't have or didn't have back then? Just curious on the transition as the company has grown.
Yeah, I would say that you need A+ caliber people, and you just can't compromise on that. And I've learned that lesson the hard way. The thing is, like, an A+ person, they're going to stand out. And so, like, the gentleman that runs my promotional products sales department, he started in my production team. He started as an intern, moved into production, and just continued to show himself as somebody that shows up, has a great attitude, is humble, hardworking, and plenty smart. Didn't have any sales experience. Didn't have any, never really knew how to build a quote or send a PO or none of that stuff. But I saw in him the right kind of attitude and the drive and the passion and the humility above all things, that I've continued to promote him, and he has risen to the occasion every time. And he's a rock star. So I've also hired in people that had the pedigree to the moon that were complete flops because they thought they were the best thing since sliced bread. And, that comes through when you talk to customers and you think you're better than them or you're just not willing to do whatever it takes to make a customer happy. And that's what he does. So, I think that trying to find someone that fits your culture, because that's very much the culture that every one of my companies have been successful because of our unwavering passion for the customer and willingness to do anything for the customer to make them happy. And if you're not willing to do that, you're probably not going to be successful, in my opinion. And especially, the field's been leveled now with Amazon and their reviews. So if you're providing a really great product and a really great service and standing behind it, then, you're going to pay for it. So as far as personnel goes, and then treating people right, for me, I know our team will go to the moon. In fact, I was at a show last week in Tennessee, and we had these rush orders come in for Albertsons and Kroger and Academy. And our guys had to run 24 hours a day for 6 days straight in order to get all these orders out. But every single person, not one person said, I can't come in. They all showed up, smiles on their faces, and they, rotated shifts and things like that. But they made it happen. And it's just because we have the right people. People feel valued. They feel appreciated. And that starts at the top. And I always try to say that I want to be a servant leader. And I've been all the way to the bottom. I've been to the bottom. I've got some terrible jobs in my back pocket and had some terrible bosses in my back pocket through the years. And as you learn those things and you understand about how to be a leader, then you hopefully can transfer those values onto your team. And then when you do need to lean on them, everybody's paddling hard in the right direction because they do feel valued and a part of something bigger.
Great answer. Have a great team, but also build a great team with culture. And it sounds like you've done that. And that's a cool story about the team going 24/7 for 6 days. So when you run businesses, it's like time flies. So you got to be able to put that thing down on paper or somehow remember those stories. I guess, Christmas parties are coming up, so that's where those things come out. But those are always fun to have at every company.
Yeah.
With your team of 30, again, so let's get into the sales. If you don't mind kind of telling me just like quickly about, say, the org structure, how you have it set up. And the only reason I bring it up is because, selling into Walmart is going to take a, different discipline than selling promotional goods, then maybe even selling into Kroger because it's a little bit different. And then also totally different than selling into Amazon. So how are you able to do it? Is it kind of, how many people is it taking and what are the basic kind of breakdown of responsibilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, this business is unique because we're not only a sales and marketing department, but we're graphics because we do a lot of interaction with customers back and forth on design for their logo and layouts and things like that. So we have a large graphic team and then the actual manufacturing team. So out of the 30, it splits out a bit like this. We've got about 50% of them it's a 2-story building. So the upstairs is production. So 15 or so are in production. About 60% of those are in the actual assembly of the product. And then 40% are in the printing section. So they're actually printing onto the elastic that we use for the bands. They're cutting the elastic. They're quality controlling it. They're printing the cards and cutting the cards. And then the other side is actually assembling the product, putting it on the cards, boxing it, packaging it, retail packaging it, and clip strip and all that stuff to get it out. The other 15 people are going to be sales, marketing, admin, customer service, and graphics. So graphics team is a team of 5 now. So that takes up 30% of our workforce downstairs. And then we've got one general manager, and she's been with me since my last 3 startups back, and through a big exit and everything. And she's been a right-hand person. And it's very much like I'm the big picture guy. I'm the visionary. If you follow any of that type of the visionary, and then the integrator, she's my integrator, and she makes sure that things happen. Something has to happen. She'll make sure it happens. And she's a great leader, and nobody's going to outwork her. Then I have an accountant that keeps our books straight, makes sure we get paid on time, and that invoices are right, and the work we do get paid for. And so he's amazing. And then we have a shipping and customer service and internet fulfillment manager, and she makes sure all shipments go out on time, the customers receive communication about their orders, and that all their website orders and any seller fulfilled Amazon orders are fulfilled on time every time. And she's a very detail-oriented person and really good at it. She's also our party planner, which is great to have someone there that loves party planning, and she loves it, and she does a great job.
Always got to have one of those.
Got to have that, right? Party planning committee. Yep. But then, so the sales and marketing, right? So that really centers around me. That's my strength. I kind of head up both in a way. But then as far as the action, and then I have an executive assistant, which ironically, she keeps us all straight, right? She's that super organized person. And we use some tools, 2 particular pieces of software that really help us. So we use Slack to communicate in each work group. So if you're in the promotional product sales team, there's a communication group for that. And if you're in the retail team, there's a different group for that. And so she keeps us all communicated on there. But then we use Monday.com is like a kind of a rolling to-do list that she monitors and makes sure that she goes through my email and make sure, because it's so much. I think I have 175,000 emails right now in there, and I don't know how many come in a day, but she goes through. She'll make sure that the important ones go on to Monday.com, and I get those taken care of. And she'll remind me, because I'm a little bit scatterbrained in that way, and she'll make sure that happens. And this is me sort of shoring up. Like, I think as an entrepreneur, we all have to understand our weaknesses, maybe more so than we need to understand our strengths, because you need to fill those weaknesses in with people that's their strength, and then you'll have something robust. And so we have one person that runs our promotional product sales, one person that runs our retail sales, and then I have sort of a floater who's been my right-hand marketing manager, and he's also an excellent graphic artist. He does all our design work for packaging, all of our design work for displays and our logos, and any high-end collabs we do with celebrities. He does all of that, premiere work, and he's in the office with me. So that's kind of rounds everybody out. So really our sales and marketing team is only 5 people total, including my executive assistant. And we each kind of have our silo. Now, I do have one other person. You mentioned Amazon. So I have an Amazon manager in-house, but all he does is do fulfillment to the FBA centers. So we'll do, maybe 3 million this year on Amazon with just our one product line. And so we do a lot of business over there. You got to keep the shelves full over there if you want them to keep populating you to the top of the listings. And so he does a great job there. But then I have an independent contractor out of California that manages the nuts and bolts, the back end side of it, and makes sure that all of our listings are populating well. He opens up case logs with Amazon to make sure that, anytime, because there's all kinds of weird issues that happen. If any of you guys out there listening sell to Amazon or you look, that there's some weird nuances that happen. The retail team will jump in and change your listing title, or, they'll change the way your brand is listed in the brand registry and things like that. So they do that, and they do that for a small percentage of our sales. But it's well worth it because, we have a perfect seller rating. We have perfect customer service rating. And so that's kind of the whole team from front to back. Yeah,
really interesting. I was taking notes there. So I just find this part of it really fascinating, and how businesses grow, and how, you have to decide how to allocate all these people. So you got, half in production and 5 out of the 30 in graphics, which is huge. And and you and I probably read the same book, because you use the terminology. Your GM is an integrator. Oh man, I'll come back to you on that book.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a couple of books. Yeah. And I can't remember it either, but Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. We're talking about the same book, but we don't know it. Well, I'll put it in the show notes. I'll tell you guys. I'll tell you afterwards, Mike. But anyways, but it sounds like you run a lean team, and I took those notes for Monday.com. I'm going to take a look at that. Obviously I've heard of Slack, haven't heard of Monday.com. It looks like that's kind of like your tool that you use to kind of make sure, the key tasks, everybody understands kind of like the key elements, or you at least understand your own key tasks that you got to get done. And then utilize an assistant, which is pretty cool too. So yeah, good overall feel. I think, the audience will get a good feel for kind of how your company is set up, and then now we know how you're driving revenue. And then quickly, because it seems like it's one of the, parts of your success is kind of back to the beginning. You talked about how you partner with inventors. So do you want to kind of go into that? Like how do the ideas actually come to you? How do the inventors know to come to you? How do you partner with them? How do they win in the relationship? It'd be great to hear how that works.
Yeah. So every single bit of this, even the org chart, all that happened organically by the need arising for something. And, back to the story when I was working my corporate job and I was doing home and garden shows and mall kiosks on the side, and then found the need to have something I could control. That's when I met my very first inventor at a home and garden show. And he had developed this aftermarket weed eater head that later became the Pivot Trim and number one selling weed eater head in the world once we got our hands on it. And then eventually sold that company. But partnering with him he was a unique character too. But I just feel like everybody has their own strength and, God-given talents. And so, a lot of these inventors that I run into and meet, and I speak at entrepreneur conferences, I speak at inventor clubs in Houston and around, and they're very much similar types of personalities on par, right? Not all, you can't paint too broad of a brush, but generally speaking, they like to be in the details. They like to be coming up with innovative solutions and prototypes and trying to fix problems that may or may not be right for the marketplace. And there's a big difference in a product or an idea that you should just make one of and just use around the house because it's a good little gadget for you, and something you should, cash your 401k in and go all in and make it into a company. And so I think my strength has been to be able to see the vision for, hey, this product fits these criteria. I have a very, specific list of criteria. It can be demonstrated. It's relevant. It solves a real problem that people can know of already that you don't have to convince them they have. And it's in an industry. There's not some huge barriers from, enormous competitors or domineering, safety compliance or something like that can, derail you. And it's not too big of a huge barrier of entry. But if all those criteria are met, then I will partner with an inventor through a license arrangement. And so I license the patents from them. And in every case, ironically, I've licensed pending patents. So that means that they've just filed for their patents. We don't know whether they're going to issue or not issue, in which case I'm taking on some risk, because if they don't issue, well, then all this effort that I've, put into this so far is, I'm not going to be able to protect it, at least not from a patent standpoint. But we partner up, and the good thing about it is that I can do what I do best, which is, creating a great brand, marketing, starting to attend trade shows and building my network, leaning on my network of distribution or whatever sales channels are emerging, which is kind of where I've been able to make my way, is trying to stay ahead of the curve and marketing in emerging ways, social media being one example. But the best thing is that the inventor can then go back to the workshop where they're most happy, where they produce their best work and develop the next version or the next machine in this case. So all the machines that we use to manufacture the LoveHandle here were invented and developed and built by the inventor of the LoveHandle. In his basement, he took 80/20, which is a type of rail system, and it looks very much like large Tinker toys with Arduino circuits and actuaries and circuit boards and pneumatics. And he just started with the idea that, hey, I want to make something that will build this part at scale. And it took him like 6 months, and then he built it, loaded it in a U-Haul truck. He's from Minnesota, drove it down here to Texas, set it up in our little shop, and that thing started spitting parts out. And now we've got 3 of those machines up there and can produce 50,000 units a day off of these machines. And then he's built other machines for us that do stick them, the parts on the cards. And he's just built one he's bringing down in 2 weeks that will actually completely package our product and print the barcode on the packaging for each, style that we were making. So he is amazing at that. But if he was tied up doing customer service calls or, package design or sending trade shows or whatever, then he wouldn't be able to be in his sweet spot. So this partnership is a great example of, where like a marriage, where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. He's contributing in ways that only he can do, and I'm contributing in ways that only that I can do. And in the end, we both get to be, millionaires, hopefully one day. So,
well, sounds like you hit a home run with this guy, Mike. I can tell you, not only does he's got the idea, the product, but then also the ability to make the product. So, wow, that's a cool story. And I guess a key thing I took out of this, and again, is it's not about the idea. You're dealing mostly with patented product ideas, right? Would that be fair to say? You're not, even if it's in, even before the consideration point, you're waiting for something that's already, it's not patent pending. You mentioned you might work with those, but generally it's patented. And at the idea stage, you wouldn't even, it wouldn't even garner interest until maybe it had a patent. Is that kind of how you look at it?
Yeah. The patents are a funny thing. But yeah, so it just happens to work out that way, that they've been pending patents. And I kind of like that runway, because when it's pending, you can claim the moon. You can say, I invented the wheel.
Yeah, totally.
And, until the, examiner gets in there and says, no, actually it's been done or whatever, you get to sort of claim the moon. So that's kind of a cool time to be launching a brand. And then beyond that, if it issues, doesn't issue, it's all perception to a point, especially utility patents are. Now, and again, I'm not a patent attorney, but from a marketing perspective, I have seen over this time of being an entrepreneur a growth in the importance of design patents and trademarks because of the digital age that we live in. And for the best example is Amazon. I can show Amazon a design patent, which is a visual representation of my product. And I can show them a trademark, which is a group of letters together or a logo. And they can very quickly say yes or no. That is protected or not protected. You give them a utility patent. Well, now they have to decipher whether this language inside the utility patent that describes this mechanical invention or whatever it is that you've invented makes some judgment call as to whether this other product infringes on your product or not. And they're not going to do that. And they're not qualified to do that. So it's been pretty interesting. Early on, I was like, it's all about the utility patent. But anymore, it's about, more about the design patent and the trademark that become important. But ultimately, the most important thing is that you get to the market first and you show up with the best solution first. And, I was listening to a podcast the other day with Seth Godin, big fan of Seth Godin, and he was talking about this website called the Wayback Machine. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Still use it, I think.
So he's talking about, so you can go back and see what Amazon looked like back in 2000 or 2004 or whatever, and kind of see how imperfect their product was. But you know what? They were first, and they kept getting better and kept getting better. And so that's a whole lot of it, is starting the journey and just pushing your imperfect idea out there into the marketplace, and then course correct as you go.
Yeah. And that's great advice. And Amazon's never had actually the best shopping experience in my opinion. They do everything else right, but they never really cared about how the page looked. Everybody else is always focused on kind of having a better customer experience on the page, but Amazon's just well, we're going to get it to you in a day or two. And that's what customers value more than, having the fonts look a different style or the page organize the layout a little bit better, like some others have tried. So yeah, that's right. It's interesting. So, this is, we could talk for hours probably on the marketing side, and we haven't even talked about that. But, we've covered a lot about your company and how you think and how you sell and where you sell to, and all about promotional goods. And now we just talked about partnering with inventors, and all of it is so fascinating. And but just kind of wrapping things up here, what do you think is just? And you said you speak a lot, so I'm sure you talk about some of these subjects. But what is maybe your best advice that you could pass on to brand owners? And these wouldn't be startups; these would be kind of like this audience, which might be comprised of hardware show, houseware show brands. But at the same time, a lot of them are kind of old school, and they're thinking traditional in-store only. options and not always up to date on the digital age, but kind of if you had to speak to that audience, what kind of would the theme be?
Well, that's a great question, and it's hard to paint a broad brush across it. But I would say that if your business, let's say for example that you attend a lot of trade shows, which a lot of us do, Houseware Show, the Hardware Show, on and on. We attend the Consumer Electronics Show and Promotional Product shows, and on and on. And so I can't tell you the number of shows that I've done. It's got to be up in the hundreds, probably in the thousands at this point. And so the key is to be better than everyone around you. And whether that's that your backdrop is bright and clean and your stuff is lit and it really stands out, and that you have a very good location in that show such that natural traffic will find you. Those are some small tangible things. I mean, work with show management. Don't accept a terrible booth spot. Keep pushing, keep asking, email them every day. Did something open up? Hey, did you got a better spot? Because what happens, you can look at a floor plan. And I learned this from doing the home and garden shows, the retail shows, when I was cash and carry. And if you got, people walk in the front, they turn right, and they start going up and down the aisles, most of them. And if you got them too early, well, they weren't ready to buy yet. But if you got them too late, they were out of money. And it's kind of the same thing. So like, your third or fourth aisle, across aisle, and people walk on the right side of the aisle, just like they drive on the right side of the road. And you want to be able to stop them. So you want a facing corner on the right side, third or fourth, fifth aisle, somewhere in there, where it's going to be a natural stop for people. And you want to make sure that it's a visual difference from the people around you. And don't sit on your laurels. You didn't spend all that money to go to the show to sit in a chair. You shouldn't have a chair in your booth. You can go sit some other time. Don't sit while you're at the show. You need to be stopping every single person and starting a conversation. And if it's a busy show, then be more selective about who you talk to, but use your time wisely. And we go even a step further and we start to network with other people in the industry, competitors. You have a competitor there? Don't be standoffish with your competitor. Go make friends with them. Take them to dinner. Get to know them. I did that with my first company, my first big company, Pivot Trim. We started talking to our competitor over there, went to dinner with them, built a great relationship. They became our largest distributor and then eventually purchased our company for over $6 million. All because I was able to set my ego to the side and say, you know what, how can I create a win-win with these guys? And so I think that approach to trade shows and being more creative, taking some time to plan it out, make sure it looks visually great and that you're ready and prepared for it instead of just showing up, putting your stuff up and sitting down and waiting for people to stop at your booth, because that's not the way to get the best return on your investment.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up so in summary, obviously have a beautiful booth and spend some time and obviously some money on that and stand out more than everybody is around you was your key point. And meet the competition. I 100% agree. Because, hey, the business is, it's usually a huge market. And sometimes everybody gets caught up in thinking that, it's just them and the competition. But there's so many other people probably involved in most markets, right? And the pie is usually huge. And there's so much to learn from the competition. And obviously get that great location. But the other one, I was kind of laughing a little bit when you talked about kind of stand up, don't have a chair, like get in there and meet with people. But I always find it so funny when people are having lunch in their booth. If there is not a bigger turnoff, for a prospective buyer, and they're walking down the aisle and someone's, eating food in their booth, it's just like there's that's kind of what the lunch hall's for. But I still see it. So yeah, those are things to avoid at a trade show. And wow, you've been to a lot of them, a heck of a lot more than I have. So you've put your time in.
Yeah. Well, there's more coming. And just to jump in real quick, is based on your previous question, the other piece of it, outside of the trade show, in the age that we live in, as uncomfortable as might be, you have to get good at video. Yep. Video is king for any brand today. If you're not creating good video around your product and showing the world why they want it, or your service and why they want it, then you are really missing the boat, because that's what works. That's the end game, is creating great video content. So make sure that if you think you're creating enough today, then double it, because you just need to create as much as you can around your brand.
Yeah, well said. I mean, look, YouTube is like the modern day blog. Everybody's getting their information off YouTube. So creating that, I mean, it's just the template the medium that everybody is using. And interestingly, so I started another company where we're doing, agency consultancy style work. And one of the most interesting offerings that we have is doing influencer marketing for people, where we're getting videos, influencers to create videos of their product, third party, talking about their product. But anyways, yeah, you're 100% right on video. It's a huge deal. And it's perfect for this audience because it's not taken advantage of enough. And people, I think, are just now kind of catching up to having great photo collateral. Like that's still a work in progress, right? And then video is kind of the next level and people still kind of have to up their game to get to that point.
Yep. And don't think any of it has to be perfect. It's okay to be a little bit imperfect with it as long as you put it out there.
Oh yeah. No, engaging is always going to, take precedence over having everything perfect. And most you're probably the same way as me. We don't have enough patience to get I'd rather get it out the door with a great message than have, all the lighting and the backgrounds and everything perfect. Because I think at the end of the day, usually the artist or the videographer cares more about that than the actual audience might.
Right. Yep.
Cool. Listen, Mike, this has been really interesting. I learned a lot right here. I mean, I'm taking notes on the promotional engine. I'm going to go look at that myself, although it may not totally qualify in my type of business, but learned so much. And I know the audience has. Where can the audience get a hold of you and learn more from you?
Yeah, so I'm active on two main platforms. On Instagram, I'm at Mike Watts. I was able to get my name. Had to buy it from a Brit, but I think it was worth it. So, but reach out to me there, and I answer DMs. So if you have a question about any of the things you heard on here, I do answer them. Sometimes it'll be a video response or an audio response because that's an efficient way to do it. Or send me a video or audio message, and I read them all and I respond to them all. And I am launching a live show on LinkedIn. That's going to launch in the spring of next year. And that's going to be around just launching businesses and taking things to the next level. And we're going to be bringing on some great guests, I think, that we have lined up for that and digital marketing. So we're excited so definitely connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
Wow. Well, thanks a lot, Mike. It's great getting to know you here, and maybe down the road, I'll have you on again and we could talk more about marketing and product launches because it sounds like you have a lot of expertise there. But yeah, I just want to thank you for being a part of the Page One podcast, and thank you, audience, as well, for joining us today. And if you need help launching products yourselves, or you're looking for help with influencer marketing or selling on homedepot.com or wayfair.com or any of the other large big box online channels, check us out at retailband.com. And you can also find more information about how we actually can help you in those specific areas with case studies. And you can reach out to me directly at luke@retailband or find me on LinkedIn. And also, if you enjoyed the podcast today, would truly appreciate a review on iTunes. Thanks again, everybody. Hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to the Page One podcast with Luke Peters. If you like our show and want to know more, check out our other segments. Also, please help us out by leaving us a rating on iTunes. Want to learn more about our commerce? Check out www.retailband.com to get more great tips and tricks on how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers.